Hello everyone! How's everyone doing? It's me, Pretty Hannah. I love you all. Mwah, mwah, mwah. Now, Casanova Pictures feels it would be not nice to present this story without saying some friendly warning. This is a collection of dark stories all dealing with the infamous serial killer Hannya. We will go into 5 short stories about Hannya, about her victims, and some of the mysteries surrounding Hannya. Not all your questions will be answered, but I hope you will leave satisfied. This might thrill you. It may shock you. Hell, it might even horrify you. You have been warned, my lovely fans. So if you're still here, that means you're ready. Enjoy the show.
The Hiker. Cassandra, a pretty young woman with beautiful black hair, walked through the woods with a backpack, carrying a tent over her shoulder. The weather was perfect for a hike. It surprised her that the woods were so empty, but did not mind the solitude, as it was the whole reason why she went into the woods in the first place. Cassandra was consumed by all the elements of the forest. The sunlight shone through the cracks of the leaves above her as she walked about. The occasional gentle gust of wind ran through her long dark hair, reminding her of a tranquility she hadn't felt in a long time. Cassandra stopped by the lake for a rest. She looked at the reflection of the forest in the water and saw a figure standing at the top of the hill across the lake. She looked up, but the figure had vanished. She didn't make anything of it. She was unfamiliar with this forest and followed her instincts to find a suitable camping ground. She set up her tent before nightfall and built a fire. She held up a picture of her ex, Brittany, and stared at it one last time before dropping it onto the fire. At that moment, the image of Brittany burning in the fire had never been more beautiful to her. Brittany's blonde hair illuminated like an angel appearing before a dying person, ready to take them to the afterlife. Memories of her soft skin and piercing blue eyes that she could spot from anywhere in a crowded room. Cassandra reached her hand into the fire, trying to preserve the newly discovered beauty, but was quickly reminded why she left Brittany, now with a small burn that would most likely heal faster than Cassandra's heart. Cassandra looked up from the fire in front of her and thought she had seen something nearby in the forest, what looked like the same figure she saw at the lake. But it was dark and the figure did not move, and the fire in front of her may have been distorting her vision. She was transfixed by the silhouette. Even if it was just the shadow of a tree, she could not stop staring, while the fire kept her warm and crackled every so often. Then, suddenly the figure grew 2 horns out of its forehead, and the peaceful breeze that the wind once was had turned into a despairing howl. An electrifying chill ran down Cassandra's back, and she ran into her tent, zipping it up. She got into her sleeping bag and covered her mouth, trying not to make a sound. The fire outside illuminated the silhouette of a woman, walking up to the tent and stopping in front of it. It looked like a demon who was hunting. The fire died, and darkness was all that Cassandra could see. Cassandra's heart was beating uncontrollably with fear, thinking the beating was so loud that the demon outside could hear it. Then, without a warning, there was silence. The first coherent thought that ran through her mind was pain. The same kind of pain that she felt before she entered the woods to distract herself from the heartbreak. As she laid on her back in the middle of the tent, she finally saw what had caused the silence. It was the killer, Hannya. Hannya had removed Cassandra's heart from her body and held it in her hands for Cassandra to see as she died.
My name is Stacy, and the day my wife Liz and I bought this house, it was the happiest day of my life. Our first night here, we sat right on this very spot, our big, wise backyard, Except we didn't have the storage shed then. It was a beautiful night. We sat in these lawn chairs. We held hands. It was perfect. Soon after, we were shopping for furniture. Our empty home was filling with life. We were together every day, watching movies on our couch, eating delicious food on our dining table, and making love on our bed. It was a dream come true for me. But then things started changing. We started drifting apart. The work days at the office got longer and longer. It wasn't long before Liz stopped coming home. Soon I was watching movies on the couch alone, eating dinner alone, and sleeping in our bed alone. And now I'm sitting here in our big backyard with our ugly shed, alone. I take a drag of my cigarette and exhale a cloud of smoke into the cool night sky. I look at my watch. It's getting late, and she's still not home. She promised she would be here for dinner. But it's not too late. She still has some time left. I put out my cigarette and go inside to the kitchen. When I reach the counter, I check my phone. No missed calls. I don't believe this. Not even a missed call. Still, I call her and leave a voicemail. As I record the message, I listen to myself play the happy housewife. Tell her I'm waiting for her and that I love her with a big stupid smile on my face, like if she was standing right here in front of me. When I'm done, the smile fades. I wail across the living room and head for the bathroom to take a shower. The shower head springs alive, water rushing out. It hits the tub with a constant force. As I gaze at myself in the mirror, I ask, she'll make it home this time, right? Hours later, I sit alone at the dining table. Small streams of water slide down my face. Mascara leaves streaks of water on my cheeks like scars. She's not coming. How could I be so fucking stupid? I cry alone at my dining table. I finish eating with an empty seat across from me. How many more nights of this, Liz? After dinner, I start clearing the table and walk to the sink. As I wash the dishes, I look out to the dark street outside my window and see a strange figure across the street. In the distance, the form looks like a slim woman, but I can't make out the face. All I know for sure is that face is not human. I try to focus my eyes. Oh, my heart almost leaps out of my chest. I shoo the cat away and look through the window again, but the figure is gone. Uneasy, I step into the backyard again. On the lawn furniture, where I sat earlier, a newly lit cigarette burns bright. By my feet, I trip over something. The cat. Its lifeless body lays on its side, mouth open with a silent scream. It's been slashed repeatedly. I rush inside to my phone and I dial Liz's number. Still no answer. Liz, please come home. The neighbor's cat, Rita, she's dead. Someone killed her. I'm so scared. Please come home now. Midway through my second voicemail to Liz, I realize the back door is unlocked. But it's too late. The figure from before now stands at my back door. The figure walks into the dining room and into the light. I can see her now. She's almost beautiful. But her face, it's twisted, a mask with horns and a face that's full of anger, and at the same time, it's full of sorrow. It's the face of Hannya. She walks past the dining table and into the living room where I stand by my couch. She approaches me slowly. She touches my face with her hands, gently. Then she slashes my hand, knocking my phone away with a swift move, stabs my stomach. I hit the ground hard, screaming. I cry out to Liz as the phone still records. Liz, please, I need you. She's going to kill me. Help! I fight through the pain to crawl away on the living room floor, but she catches me and stabs me in the back again and again. She drags me out of the pool of blood across the living room, across the dining room, across the backyard, and into the shed. I'm thrown into the shed with a surprising strength, Then she speaks.
I feel your pain. Your heart, it cries out in agony. I will release you of that suffering.
My eyes swell with tears. The last thing I see is her knife rise above her head.
Your poor, delicious heart. It will be just what we need to satisfy the hunger.
The waitress. She filled up her cup for the third time already. An astonishment, Julie Williams thought, and the woman hadn't even chosen what she wanted to eat yet. The other 3 women around her had already ordered, to which Julie thought she really shouldn't have taken their orders, but they had suggested it, claiming that the woman needed more time to get it right. She thought on what that might mean, but let it go. Julie wanted to take that woman by the head and point her in the direction of something, anything, just to get a damn ribeye steak or something. But that was frowned upon. So, while Julie stood there waiting, she guessed their ages.
The woman taking forever to choose was most likely in her 50s. The woman next to her, perhaps in her 70s, she guessed. The woman across must be in her mid-30s, and the younger girl, maybe in her 20s, she thought. She also passed the time, as she loved to do, by pointing out funny things about the patrons. The oldest woman looked like a witch, her skin pale and her hair white and withered. The woman in her 30s had this beanie on so low that it looked as though she had a unibrow. The younger woman had a gigantic nose that protruded out of her face, and Julie wondered how she possibly managed to drink anything. She also wondered if she could balance anything on it. Maybe a straw? She shook her head, distracted. Oh, and of course there was the woman choosing. But there actually wasn't much to make fun of. Well, besides the fact that she was here wasting not only Julie's time, but her family's time. Well, at least Julie thought they were a family. The woman continued to look and look. She flipped the pages, still deciding, as if something might just pop up unexpectedly. It wasn't until Julie began tapping her foot that the woman took her eyes away from the menu and looked down and asked Julie, you okay there? Julie wanted to say something to her to break that awful sourness in the air, but the younger girl actually spoke up first, in a serious tone.
She just needs some more time. Please, be patient with her. Julie was patient, but she couldn't help thinking that the woman was now probably doing this on purpose. Finally, the woman chose what to eat. She was going to have scrambled eggs, hash browns, 2 pieces of bacon, and ham. Julie took the menu, bit her lip, and simply walked away to give the order to the cook, Vanessa, who pursed her lips and gave her a thumbs up. It was already past midnight, but that didn't stop people from coming into Anne's diner. It was practically impossible for anyone to pass through, but Julie made her way across the black and white tiled floor. Nothing about this place made any sense. The ceiling was the same as the floor. There were 2 large beams on either end of the establishment. Julie thought how useless that was. I mean, if this place wanted to fall, it could do so any time. And she kind of hoped it would. I mean, the seats were all a light red leather with pink rubber lining, some already ripping. Probably a result of children or intoxicated people, but that wasn't really what Julie was worried about when it came to this place being a mess. In the waiting room, there were 2 claw machines where the children played while the adults sat, talking and waiting to be seated. Everything in this place was so mismatched. I mean, the seats were all a light red leather with pink rubber lining, some already ripping. It was really a wonder what Anne was going for. On the outside, besides the bright neon sign in red, orange, pink, and blue, spelling out that egotistical maniac's name, Julie thought, she had a car from the 1970s. And then on the inside, she had a 1950s jukebox. No,
Nothing really made any sense here, but people didn't seem to care. The one thing that Julie did care for, though, it even calmed her nerves, was that very jukebox that played 1950s music. A fortunate thing that her parents passed down to her love of 1950s music. It was really lucky, she thought, that Anne hadn't messed with the machine and put 80s music in there. Julie exited the kitchen carrying a large tray of food, which consisted of a cheeseburger combo, a patty melt, and a chicken sandwich. She kind of wished she would bump into someone just to see them fall, but she held it all together with no problem. She got to table 5 and could barely find anything to make fun of. Besides one woman's front tooth, it was chipped off. Julie didn't want to make fun of her or of anyone. Her mother would surely disapprove, but what else could she have done? It was either that or lose her sanity. They thanked her and she walked away again without a word, heading back to pick up that first order. The one for the lady that couldn't decide. But Marian stopped her. "Julie," Marian said, "can you take table 2? Oh no. Julie was all too aware that was a terrible, terrible idea. That was Veronica's table. No one ever went to it when she was gone. We even told Anne herself never to let anyone sit there. Veronica claimed it was her good luck seat and needed to be kept safe. Whenever someone worked it, Veronica scolded them the next day, somehow finding out. Julie had been lucky in all her 5 years never to take it. She didn't want to hear Veronica yelling at her. She turned away from Marian, who apologized to the patrons waiting at the counter. She thought Marian was following her, but Julie didn't pay much attention to it. She'd been feeling a lot like that recently, like somebody was following her. Anyways, she made her way through the kitchen, which was located in the center of the bar. Waitresses were taking orders. She saw Karen smile and then noticed Julie's frown. Julissa was ringing at customers and hadn't looked at Julie, which was great. She didn't want to see her face. Nobody's but Anne's right now. She was on a mission. Inside the kitchen, all the cooks were walking this way and that when one cook, Donna, a heavyset woman peeling potatoes, rather professionally said, "You're going to slip," but Julie ignored her and went on her way. She had barely even talked to the woman, who was now saying something to another cook, but she couldn't hear. She walked down the hall to the second room on the right and entered Anne's room rather quickly. "Stop," Anne said. "Just take the table." She had been looking at some papers, checking her books, Julie guessed. Miscellaneous papers lay everywhere on the desk, including a sandwich from her own diner. Julie wondered how she could eat food from her own place. She was in her mid-60s with thin-rimmed glasses and light blonde hair. Julie wanted to fight with her more, but all she kept saying was that Veronica had taken a day off for family. She wanted to tell her what bullshit that was. It was clear that she was at some party on the south side of town, but Julie bit her tongue. She knew the next day Veronica was going to scold her and Anne would do nothing. But Julie would surely clean. If those people sitting at table 2 made a terrible mess, it would all be on Julie. Julie wanted to grab Anne's stapler and beat Veronica over the head and staple her eyes shut. As for Anne, perhaps spit in her eye, though that day never came. She made her way outside, past Donna, who was saying, "She can't read. The dummy can't even read." She was referring to the sign that said no running. Julie wasn't even aware she was running, perhaps walking too quickly. She ignored that horrible woman and made her way outside, where Marian stopped her and asked her what happened and if she's okay. "Ugh, stop worrying, Marian," Julie scolded her. "Just shut up." Marian turned quiet and looked as though tears might begin to fall. Julie walked away thinking she should apologize eventually. Once again, it was only the sweet sounds of the 50s making its way out of that machine that seemed to calm Julie. She could see her mother dancing whenever she heard it. Julie tried her best to take her mind off things as she went about her business. When she went to take the letdown in her family's order for dessert, the woman took her sweet time again, which really annoyed Julie. On to table 4, where the woman with the missing tooth was heavy into her cheeseburger. Julie bit her tongue at the idea of the woman biting so hard that her other teeth might fall off like glass. It was just how the woman ate. She ate like a wood chopper. Julie walked away, eyes straight. She remembered how her mother used to make fun of her aunt for the way she ate, opening her mouth, stomping it shut, moving the bottom jaw to the right, opening it up, and repeating it. Julie would laugh while her aunt didn't say anything and continued eating her food that sometimes consisted of pancakes, of which her mother would eat too, and sometimes at this very restaurant she had been working at now for 5 years. She always guessed what her mother would think of things. Through all the pointless orders, including the letdown, the wood chipper,
She thought of her mother saying how proud she was of her. Her aunt, too. Julie caught herself staring out the window. Several people were eating, walking. The lights of the diner itself were bright as a mirror. The outside was illuminated by the pink neon portion of the sign, and among all those people, she saw her. Her eyes were peering at her again, her mouth grinning. Julie turned around quickly. Her heart dropped, and she made her way into the break room where she tried calming herself. She could have sworn that she saw that same lady staring at her just the other day. It was creepy. It was like she was just staring at her. She heard Donna say something to her, but she ignored it again. Inside the small break room, where water stained the walls and the ceiling, Anne claimed she would get to it eventually, Julie had always thought she would do something to the place if Anne never did anything. Rachel stepped in. "Oh, God." Ugh. "Julie," Rachel asked, "can you let me take the trash out? Let me, okay?" Julie had heard, but she wanted to hear it again, in case she was sure she should dunk her head in the deep fryer. Rachel repeated herself, "Can you let me take the trash out?" To which Julie asked why, and Rachel said, "Because Anne always sees you work. Bitch, she hardly ever did work, not even wanting to take out the trash." Once Julie had to show her the trash outside. She had told her there would be raccoons and squirrels out there, but Julie was beyond shocked to hear that she never even knew where the trash was. Julie had been super sarcastic with her instructions on throwing out the trash, but Rachel didn't like that and went to Anne, who called in Julie. "Look, I know she's a bit ditzy," Anne had told Julie. "You're fine, kid. Get back to work, all right?" It was instant satisfaction, but that hadn't been enough for Julie. Some nights later, she grabbed the trash from the dumpster, went next door, and threw trash all over her car. "Take it," Julie told her. "Go ahead, do some work." Rachel clearly didn't like that and crossed her arms. "Excuse me?" Rachel said. Julie repeated herself. "Do some work, it'll be good for you." To which Rachel brought it up now. "Look, I know you threw that crap on my car, Julie." Even now, in her moment of anger, of attempting to stand up for herself, Rachel moved her gloved hands to keep her pretty manicure from Anne's eyes. Julie stood up and walked to her, her heart racing. She wanted to use anything. Break the cupboard door, a coffee mug, anything. It would have been like her cousin all those years ago, when a certain favorite book was found inside the sink in a bowl filled with water. When she found out, the other got confronted, and that cousin's face turned bloodied, while the other's fists were the same color. But as she neared Rachel, ready to throw her head against the wall, she remembered that woman's grin and stopped, letting Rachel leave. "You're gonna slip and break your neck," Donna said. Julie neared her, her hands ready to swipe Donna's knife. "Go ahead," Donna told her. It could have been easy. She was a bigger woman, so she had to be slower. But after a moment, Julie thought against it and left, Donna murmuring something under her breath. She made her way to the letdowns table where she picked up the check that had the exact change but no tip. Rather, there was a note that read, "Get a better job." In that moment, she wished she could have shoved that down any of their throats. She crumpled it and picked up their dishes and took them to the kitchen where Angelina was all too quiet. She was still shaking when she eventually cleaned up table 4. They only left $2 as a tip, which made her even more frustrated. The time to close was finally upon them. It was pointless, thought Julie, to close it up at 2 a.m., since it would open up 6 hours later at 8. But Anne claimed she needed sleep and didn't want anyone else to manage it, only her, like her mother before her and her grandmother. Julie sweeped and mopped along with the others, Karen sweeping up a bit faster and helping Angelina with the dishes. Julie would never step in there to help. Rather, she overheard Rachel talking to Marian and Jaleesa about how she needed to sleep and study for her exams. Julie bit her lip. What did she think a degree from a school in a town no one cared about would do? No one survived this town. Even her cousins, her whole family that left. She figured they weren't doing good either. And then she heard the 3 of them talking about going to a party. Probably the same one Victoria went to. First, she wasted her time going to school. Now she was wasting it going to a dumbass party. They were pretty much done, but it was still 20 minutes till closing. They usually finished early and then hung out talking amongst themselves.
so Julie was careful to sneak out into the cool weather. She went into the dumpster and grabbed a trash bag, careful not to let it rip as she pulled it up. The moon hung high, full and bright. The sky was cloudless, but the smell of the rain earlier today still hung in the air. Those same puddles she had saw from the inside, she now stepped on. All that was on her mind was the trash bag and where she was going to throw it. The sound of the pebbled asphalt was loud beneath her feet as she made her way out of the parking lot, past the stupid 70s car. Everyone was still inside the kitchen, ready to clock out, so she wasn't too worried. She made her way around the concrete wall to the garage where everyone parked. She went inside. It was pitch black, but she knew where all the cars were lined up. She was glad she never had anything to park in here. A joy to walk. A small rectangular window let in a bit of silver light. She reached into the bag with her bare hand and began to throw half-eaten cheeseburgers filled with saliva, she was sure of it, from milkshakes spilled into the trash, with backwash included, to napkins full of something gooey like snot, clear and green. She was euphoric as she littered everyone's car with trash. If she was quick, she thought, she could go back and grab another bag. As she kept on reaching and throwing things, she saw something from the corner of her eye. It made her heart race even quicker than it already was, bumps growing on her skin as she lifted her head and turned. Someone was standing there. A silhouette, looking at her, in the shadows away from the small amount of light. She stood frozen, wondering what it was. "What?" she said, keeping her head straight, but her eyes looking around. The figure moved closer to her, toward the light. Its body was long and lanky, arms beside them straight down, its legs long and strangely straight, and at the top stood two protruding points, almost seeming to converge. Her mouth was hanging open and her eyes wide. Julie found she couldn't step backwards. She was frozen as the figure moved closer and closer and spoke something which Julie couldn't even understand. "To be doomed, to be doomed, to be doomed," she repeatedly said. Her voice started in a monotone, yet ominous. "Is a foolish thing, yet some want. A loved parentage, a girl with scissors, a girl with a rodent in hand, a girl crying loudly at the sound of new life all those years ago, and still no difference between that and the tale of a woman with a lighter, gas, and explosive material over an obtained opportunity. 5 years. Julie knew. She didn't quite understand what the woman was saying, but she had this feeling of knowing that this woman knew her. She didn't want to hear any more of this woman had to say. "This one pleases in the unknowing. Affection for the stubborn and the rancid. Same girl, same woman, both damned. Others had their chance, but they chose and they failed. And now they walk along with me. Well, they can't walk, but they have to. This same woman with longing for the sinister can walk with me too. Walk to where your heart will be mended. Why should that same woman with constant crimson knuckles be spared for that which the same person seeks the path I chose on purpose?" She told Julie to close her eyes as she neared her. She heard the footsteps, but it looked as though the woman was gliding to her. One longs to be a team player. This fool casts her off. One visits family with a favorite story, ends in water thanks to fool. One gives fool a job she wants to burn, burn, burn. Julie felt a warmness run down her cheeks. A younger version of this fool wants substance. So she takes to thievery of a nearby child, the same one who stumbled upon that tale. It goes on. This poor fool who longs for leave of this damnation, dreams of this and that, but stays with no plans, depending on who you ask. That parentage, that love, and the fool chooses to exist. That one parent, proud to call her a fool. Julie began to bawl loudly and apologized. "I'm sorry. Look, I don't know why. I don't know. But that fool must see what it's doing. Foolishly brides to oblivion. She will stay. Nothing matters. Covers ears, closes eyes." She felt her stop right in front of her skin crawling, wondering what she was going to do with her. The trees, the sky, the birds would make any fool proud. She exists because it excites her. She keeps that future pure until she runs her course. Julie wiped away the tears and thought back to watching movies with her mother, of when she gave Elizabeth her ice cream when hers fell, of Stephanie being brave and showing the world her voice and what that would entail, where Stephanie would end up, where she herself could end up. And almost as though the woman read her mind, she said, "No future. A proud one looks down at their 2 feet." Julie felt the urge and opened her eyes and saw, through those tears that she had wiped away, that she was only a few feet away from her now. "Come, child, take a walk with me," she said. "She can cure your heart. She welcomes these types." Her hand was outstretched, offering it to Julie. She sounded oddly sweet now. She was a few feet away, with something in her other hand down by her side. Julie noticed that it was surely more sharp than those protruding nightmares on top of its head. She could only see one of them clearly. It was crooked and ugly, as though it had been bent every other way before resting on where it is at now. It looked to be a bone white color. Julie said, "I'm sorry, I can't possibly." She looked at Julie but urged her to go with her. Julie repeated she couldn't. The tears were coming out even harder, and she felt as though she couldn't speak much more. Now she wondered what her mother, her small circle of friends she had, would think of her now. Surely they wouldn't want her to feel that pain erected from the woman's hand. She told Julie that path will not be simple, but Julie told her, "I know, but I won't walk with you, I can't." "She will want to know why," the woman said. "I know, though, and next time, you walk with me, no matter what." Julie felt the tears running down her face, mucus falling from her nostrils. Wiping them all on her shirt sleeve, she realized her head was feeling hot, as though she might get a headache. Though she couldn't see her face, she was sure it must be all red. This time, she watched the woman, silhouetted, move her legs backward slowly as she made her way into the darkened room next door. Julie realized she could move, but she stayed still, clutching herself. Eventually, she heard the door open and close, which startled her and sent her spine in a shiver. Suddenly, she came to, shaking her head. Whoa, that was so surreal. Did that even happen? No, that couldn't have happened. She couldn't tell how long it might have been, but she stood there, staring. Eventually, she tried to clean up the mess she made all over their cars. Whatever that was, she needed to get out of here as soon as possible. She was thinking of her mother, long gone. She made it out of this place. Her aunts and cousins had made it out of this place. She thought of Anne's diner and those inside, of the apartment she could barely pay for. What the woman was asking of her seemed impossible. It seemed evil, but maybe there was a way she could turn it to good. She eventually heard voices of Anne, Rachel, Marian, Karen, most of them calling her name out loud. Their voices had never sounded so sweet. She took care to steady herself, wiping tears and mucus away, fixing her hair. And though she tried cleaning as much off their cars as she could, she let what remained stay, dropped the trash bag, and sat down on the floor, ready to take responsibility. She heard Anne say, "Julie?" as she opened the door and turned on the lights. Whatever that was. She was done putting trash on other people's cars. She was done judging other people. She could only blame others so much for her situation, but sometimes you need to put the focus on yourself. Whatever it was, she realized she was lucky. She was ready to go back inside and finally leave this place.
Another young dead woman on the ground. Her chest has been opened and her heart has been taken out. I've been staring at her corpse for 2 hours already. I don't even remember how it happened. Like all the other young women that I have killed. I just don't remember how it happened. I don't know how many years I've been doing this. Am I even human anymore? I get up and walk to the bathroom. It's a small apartment, and the bathroom isn't too far from the living room. I enter the bathroom and stare at myself in the mirror. All I see is me wearing a Hannya mask, I don't even know how my own face looks anymore. I don't even remember my name. I look down and my clothes are all covered in blood. Even my hands are. I wish all this killing could be over. Can this be over?
No.
Say the voice from the other room. I turn and look down the small hallway. In the living room, the light of the TV's on. It's her again. Always watching me. Always able to read my mind. How have I become her slave? What deal with the devil have I made? I know I need to go to her. She's probably hungry again. I always have to feed her. A cheerful theme song is playing. It's coming from the TV in the living room. It's her theme song from the TV show. Yes, even demons have TV shows. It's like a ringtone. She's calling me. She wants to talk to me. I should go. Making a demon wait is not a very good idea. I leave the bathroom and walk over to the living room. The young woman is still dead on the floor. It's a mess. Blood everywhere. Right at the end of the living room is a TV. The pretty Hannya show is on. She's dancing and singing. Why does she always look so happy? Why does she always look so pretty? Pretty Hannya is a young Japanese woman in her 20s wearing all pink, and she even has a pink hair. She's always singing and dancing, sometimes in her sexy pink lingerie. Her show is about teaching English to Japanese people. That's how I learned English. But sometimes, when the pretty Hannya show is on, she only talks to me. She tells me to do things for her. She said, I was once a broken, pathetic, ugly, stupid Japanese woman who was more worthless than shit. I was told that she saved me and helped me to bring punishment to those who treated me poorly. Maybe it's true, or maybe it's not. Whatever the case is, doesn't matter. I'm stuck with her, and I don't even know how long this relationship will last. She finally stops dancing and realizes I was in the room. She smiles. That gorgeous smile.
Hannya, I'm hungry. I know you are tired, but this is the last one, I promise. I really promise. When this is done, you won't see me for a long time. You can finally live a normal life. But you have to feed me one last time, and this time it's important. We are going after someone who is getting too close to us, and we need to take her out. I can smell her hurt, and it smells delicious.
Say pretty Hannya while smiling. I nod. What else can I do? I'm her slave. She's hungry, and I must feed her. I guess I'm going to murder someone else now. But is she telling me the truth? After this, she won't bug me anymore. Will she finally leave me alone? I hope so. I want this nightmare to end. I walk over towards the dead woman. I bend over and pick up my knife and hammer, all full of blood. It's ready to kill one last time. Let's end this.
The Reporter. Tokyo, a city of wonder and beauty, and it is a place I love so much. There is something amazing about this city, especially at night. I love looking at all the red lights on the buildings when the sun sets. I love how the city is put together, the sound of the city, the way it looks. I even love the way it smells. This city feels like it was made for me. I've been to Tokyo many times, both on business and vacation. Never get bored of traveling here. Every time I'm here, I find something new. It's a place that can never be fully discovered. So many hidden gems. So many secrets. This time, my trip to Tokyo isn't a vacation but a business trip. I'm a reporter. My name is Ashley Lee. I've been working for a very huge network in the States, and I've been doing a piece on the notorious serial killer Hannya. A serial killer that seems to target young women and take out their hearts. Unfortunately, their hearts have not been found. So far, we know of 4 killings, but we're sure there are more. The first 2 killings we knew was up north in the state of California, deep into the mountains. A lovely cabin sits there alone. The 2 women were killed brutally, and the FBI believed they were someone the killer knew. I must also admit, I also believe this. The other 2 killings weren't as brutal as those. The third victim was a young woman who was hiking near where the cabins were, a couple of miles away. I'd like to note that many young women who have hiked up there have gone missing. They haven't found their bodies, but the FBI believe they're connected to Hannya. The fourth victim was a wife who was all alone one dark night. Heart once again missing. There was also a possible 5th victim, but she said Hannya let her go. Said, "She gave me another chance to live." The FBI are still questioning her and keeping a close eye on the victim. I've been writing her story since the beginning. I have become fascinated with her. I want to be the first one to crack the mystery of this heart taker, Hannya. A week ago, I got a lead of a possible killing that took place in Tokyo, Japan. The killing almost resembles those of Hannya. I haven't shared this information with anyone except my boss. She and I both agree on many things. She's a total bitch. But we see eye to eye on most things. And one of those things was to keep this lead a secret. She also wants me to discover the truth on Hannya. Of course, her reason is for the news outlet and ratings. For me, it's personal. I have become obsessed with Hannya, and I must know who she is. My boss gave me the go-ahead to come to Japan and to see if there's a connection with those killings and the ones in the States. So here I am in Tokyo, in a small hotel room, which I don't mind. I actually love staying at these small hotel rooms. They are just perfectly small, and sometimes these hotels get free breakfast. Most of the time, these small hotels are facing the big city life of Tokyo, where I can have a glass of wine at night and watch those red lights on top of the buildings shining away. That's exactly what I'm doing now, as I wait for a phone call. A source that might know. Give me more information on Hannya. I found out all I could about these 2 killings in Tokyo. They really tried to bury it. Why? I don't know yet, but they didn't want the story out. The 2 young women that were killed here in Tokyo a few years ago had their hearts taken out. They both were naked and found dead in one of the young woman's apartments. In her bathtub, to be more exact. My guess? They were lovers, and in a night of passion, the Hannya came to visit them and killed them. The way they were killed were similar to the women in the cabins. Did these women know each other? Did they know Hannya? And why has Hannya changed her style of murdering people? Is she finally used to it or better at it? I don't know. But I do have a feeling that the first 4 young women knew Hannya, and maybe knew her personally. A close friend, maybe. I feel all of my questions will soon be answered. This call might be the one I need. The person I'm waiting for says there is another murder that happened before the woman in Tokyo. This happened up north in a small village. That's all she told me. I'm getting close. She said her information is the one that will connect everything and find out who this Hannya is. My phone is ringing. Finally, I pick it up. It's the person I've been waiting for. Her voice is a little different this time. Scared. She asked me where I was, and I will tell everything in person. I give her my address. She hangs up, and so do I. It's almost there. All the answers are within reach. She said she'll be here in about 30 minutes. Enough time to take a shower and go buy some coffee. It's gonna be a long night. I enter the bathroom, take off all my clothes, and enter the shower. I like my water not too cold or not too hot, but just right. As I was taking a shower, I was thinking, if this story could be the one that helps the FBI catch this woman. If so, I want an exclusive interview. I want to go deep inside her head. Might become a good book. Become rich out of this. Maybe they'll make a movie out of it someday. All these thoughts just make me so happy. After the shower, I put a towel on and stare at myself in the mirror. I can't believe I'm finally getting a story of a lifetime. Thank you, Hannya. I put some winter clothing on. I always find myself more attractive in the winter than summer clothing. Maybe it's because I think winter clothes are just too cute. I walk out of my hotel and I feel the winter wind of Tokyo. Cold, but just right. I walk over to the nearest 7-Eleven. Unfortunately, there are no Starbucks near me, and I ordered 2 coffees. I pay, and now I'm returning back to my hotel room. I look at my watch. It's past 30 minutes. It's almost time to uncover the truth. I hurry back to my hotel. I enter the hotel and go straight to the elevator, get in, and press the number 15. Up I go. I get out and walk to my room. My door is open, and my room is full of darkness. I can't see anything. I look around. No one is around. Maybe I left it open and with the lights off? But I never do that. I finally gather the courage and walk inside and turn on the lights. No one is here. I close the door and take off my jacket. I'm so scared. But the room doesn't feel the same as before. I suddenly feel the hair on my neck stand up. There is something in the hotel room. The bathroom! I didn't check the bathroom. I could hear the bathroom door opening. How could I have been so stupid? I can feel an ominous presence in the room now. Something full of darkness and hatred. I slowly turn around. Hannya, right in front of me, just a few feet away, wearing a demonic mask, like those Hannya masks, but it looks different. It was more sinister, ugly, but at the same time there was a hint of sadness. Even its horns were not symmetrical. It was all unbalanced. I want to say something. If it was going to end now, I need to say it, and I did. Who are you? Hannya replied. Just know, you were getting close to my past. You almost had all the answers. I'm sorry, but she is hungry. Who? The TV turns on, and on the TV there was a show on. Pretty Hannya, a cute Japanese girl wearing all pink dancing and singing. Please, let me know who you are. Hannya stares at me, and after a while she takes out her mask. I was shocked. I wasn't expecting her to look like that. So beautiful, but you can tell she's been through a lot of pain. All that beauty, all that pain. I wish I can hug her and hear her story. I wish. The lights turn off. She quickly stabs me 3 times. I can feel the blood, like warm water just pouring down my body. My legs gave out and I fell to the ground. I took a deep breath, but my body didn't let it in. I can feel pain. I can feel her on top of me, her cold hands touching my chest, looking for where my heart is. Everything now sounds like I'm underwater. I hear something odd. There is a third person in the room. I can hear that person's stomach rumbling. I turn my head. The TV is still on. The woman in the pink hair is looking at me. She keeps licking her lips, saliva dripping from her mouth. I feel a painful feeling in my chest. Unlike nothing, Hannya. I look down. I can see Hannya taking out my heart. She gives it to the woman on the TV. The woman smiles and takes a bite of my heart.
that's all the time we have. I hope you enjoyed these 5 little stories, and maybe one day you will witness the origin story of Hannya. Till then, thank you for your time, and don't forget to like, share, subscribe, all that fun stuff. Stay gorgeous, everyone!